What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Debate Room, where today, let me see if this is recording. Yes, where today we will be talking about this guy. This guy? Always to the left. Carlos Sainz Jr. For those who don't know who he is, who doesn't know it, of course, he's driving for one of the top teams, right? But anyway, one of the children of double-time world champion of the WRC, World Rally Championship, Carlos Sainz, that conducted his son into more away from the rallies where the money is not there. Where you can actually win money is the F1, right? How did he start? Well, of course, with Papa's money. But anyway, he went up. If you're not fast, actually, you don't catch the eye of the likes of Red Bull. And he joined the junior program. And we will see about that a little bit later. But anyway, he was in the junior program, won a couple of championships, such as the World Series, if I'm not mistaken. And there, seeing that Max Verstappen was jumping into the F1 car in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, they decided to push a little bit Red Bull for that seat. So they said, okay, if you win the championship, you can have the other Toro Rosso seat, right? Clear until there so far, more or less. And as you can see here, this is the first season of both of them. Supposed to be talents, right? Well, one of them, obviously, he's a talent, he's winning championships. The other one, we will talk about it a little bit more into details. Why? Because there are rumors that Carlos Sainz and Ferrari might part ways at the end of 2024. So let's analyze a little bit first how Carlos Sainz has been doing in F1 up until now. And what are his options in case that Ferrari decides not to pursue the renewal of the contract with Mr. Carlos Sainz? Or what are the other options that he might have in the grid, seeing that most of the main teams actually are not available for him? So he started in Toro Rosso, like I said, with Max Verstappen. Then he went to McLaren once Alonso decided to retire, saying that results were not there and he was not enjoying F1 anymore-ish. Where he was paired with rookie Lando Norris. The McLaren started to perform, actually, and that's where Carlos Sainz got the results that gained the attention of Ferrari. Let's not forget that he was in Renault as well. He went from Red Bull to Renault, and Renault decided not to renew him anymore and to go for Daniel Ricciardo, and he went to McLaren. And then he joined Ferrari in 2021, right? So how are the results more or less going? So let's start from the championship of 2015, where you can actually, I'm gonna, as you can see here, compare the results of him and his teammates, which actually is the only and first rival that you have in the grid, right? The way to measure your capability should be more or less with the teammate's capability. If you are doing better than your teammate with the same material, that means you are better than your teammate, or you adapt to the car better than your teammate. But anyway, so first season, you can see Max Verstappen scored more points, several more points than Carlos Sainz, right? You can see 1, 2, 3, 4 retirements for Mr. Verstappen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 retirements for Mr. Carlos Sainz Jr. He doesn't like a junior, I'm gonna call him Junior anyway. It doesn't matter, Carlos Sainz. So let's say that the Toro Rosso was not a car that was going to be scoring points all the time, right? You can see here he was 7th, at 17th, 11th, 15th, 8, 4, 8, 4, 12. So he was kind of there in the top 10 in case something happened to the people in front. They could be there to try to score some points. And similar with Mr. Carlos Sainz, right? 9, 8, 9, 10-ish. More outside the points than inside the points. But anyway. So first season, Verstappen beat him quite badly. Second season, as you can see, until Russian Grand Prix, Verstappen was in Toro Rosso with Carlos Sainz, right? 9th and 10th, 6th, retired, 9, 8, retired, 12. And then comes Verstappen's big opportunity, where they started to make some pressure, and they decided to change him for Kvyat in the Red Bull. So let's continue analyzing Carlos Sainz with Mr. Daniel Kvyat in his return to Toro Rosso, right? 6th, 10th, 8th, retire, 9, 12. So he was consistently in front of Daniel Kvyat. Right? So there where Verstappen was actually beating him, even though in this beginning of the season it was not. Kvyat was behind him, right? So let's continue with the standings in the following season. That was 2016. This is 2017. 2017, where you can see Carlos Sainz compared with Daniel Kvyat. Let's remember that there are some changes in seats here, including himself, where he went to Renault. So as you can see, as it was before, Carlos Sainz was actually destroying Daniel Kvyat every single race, which meant Daniel Kvyat leaving the Red Bull family at some point, right? There was given an opportunity for Pierre Gasly. He was retired, but I'm going to guess that Carlos Sainz was in front of Pierre Gasly. And then you can see here, actually, starting from the USA Grand Prix, that Red Bull let Carlos Sainz go to Renault, and there he was with Mr. Nico Hülkenberg. Nico Hülkenberg, who, by the way, destroyed Carlos Sainz in all these 4 races and in the following season. Of course, at the beginning, when you're jumping from one car to another, one car is not the same as the other one. Jumping from one car to another is not easy. So it's understandable that at least these 4 races that he raced for Renault were not going to be expecting a huge result or immediate result, right? From Carlos Sainz trying to beat Nico Hülkenberg. We know Nico Hülkenberg is a really talented driver. It's just that he didn't have a lot of luck in his career, but anyway. But this is the season with the preseason and testing and blah, 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 where Carlos Sainz should be either beating Nico Hülkenberg or somewhere with him. So let's check a little bit how did he do. And this is, by the way, why Renault did not renovate Carlos Sainz and went for Daniel Ricciardo, right? 2018, if I'm not mistaken already, we have Nico Hülkenberg 7, we have Nico Hülkenberg in front, retired, in front, behind for the first race. Retired, in front, behind. So we can actually see that Nico Hülkenberg more or less consistently beat the Carlos Sainz, right? They brought Carlos Sainz in Renault because in theory they were not happy with Nico Hülkenberg, his attitude in the car, right? To try to see if they could keep Carlos Sainz and perhaps bring somebody else in the following season or not. This is, by the way, one of the reasons why Nico Hülkenberg then was not renovated with Renault. So what happened there? What happened there is that Renault went for Daniel Ricciardo because they saw that Nico Hülkenberg was faster than Carlos Sainz, and perhaps Carlos Sainz was not the kind of driver that they needed to try to go forward, right? They needed somebody who was capable of winning races, especially beating Nico Hülkenberg, which we will see in the following season what's going to happen. So he went to McLaren after his very good friend Fernando Alonso decided to abandon McLaren because the team was not achieving any results. Any results, by the way, with McLaren that already did not have the Honda engine. But anyway, let's go to the following season. In the following season, by the way, you can already start seeing that Daniel Ricciardo was in front of Nico Hülkenberg, right? And you can see Alexander Albon, and you can see Pierre Gasly, which were the substitutions in Red Bull, both of them in the middle of the season. Pierre Gasly was relegated to Toro Rosso, Alpha Tauri later, but anyway. So let's just keep him on Carlos Sainz, right? Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris. Lando Norris, which was the rookie, 2019 already. And Carlos Sainz, 2015, 16, 17, 18. 4 seasons of experience in F1 against the rookie, right? The hope of McLaren. After they had been, like, they knew Lewis Hamilton. McLaren had been, like, let's say, sponsoring the career of Lando Norris since several years before. Perhaps not as much as they did with Lewis Hamilton, but anyway, he was a junior driver, right? And you can see that actually, more or less consistently, he was in front of Lando Norris-ish, right? More or less. So Lando Norris did have many retirements, 4 against 3 of Carlos Sainz, but anyway, it's expected that Lando Norris was going to be behind Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz is not a bad driver, and he's actually kind of consistent, right? But anyway, he was more or less consistently in front of Lando Norris in the first season of both of them in the F1 McLaren team, right? Second season, 2020, the season that actually gave Carlos Sainz the ticket to go to Ferrari. And again, once again, he was in front of Lando Norris. Not so much a point difference that one would expect. But anyway, you can see Norris did a podium. Carlos Sainz did no podiums, did not start in the Belgian Grand Prix. Fastest lap. 2 fastest laps for Lando Norris, 1 fastest lap for Carlos Sainz. But you can already see that Lando Norris is starting to be a little bit closer to Carlos Sainz at some points, right? At some points. But anyway, due to his good performance during the season, you can see that he did a lot of P5, P6s, a podium in Italy, 5, 6, 7, 5, 5, 4, 6. So he was kind of consistent there, behind the Mercedes and the Red Bull, right? So this gave him the opportunity to go to McLaren. And this is why, by the way, seeing where Daniel Ricciardo was with Renault, they decided to go for Daniel Ricciardo as a substitute. This is where things start to get more interesting. And this is where we're going to stop analyzing a little bit more about the stuff. Why? Because in some places they analyze things based on the results, right? To see how things were, which is kind of confusing if you start to analyze also like this other parts of history of F1, right? If you only see that the points at the end of the season are 6.5-ish, you might think, oh, Carlos Sainz destroyed Charles Leclerc, or he was like in front more often, right? But if you analyze it like this, you can also see, okay, in the year 97, Michael Schumacher scored 0 points, absolute 0 points, and Eddie Irvine beat him in the championship. And the same thing in 99. So if you check the championships, Eddie Irvine, in the 4 seasons that they were together in Ferrari, Eddie Irvine beat him in two seasons. So why would Ferrari focus so much in Michael Schumacher and not in Eddie Irvine, which was capable of beating him in 2 seasons, right? If you actually start to look into the details, you will see that in the 97, Michael Schumacher was disqualified because of what happened in Jerez, and in 99, he broke both of his legs, and he was out for like 5 or 6 races. So this is why one thing is the points at the end of the season, another one is analyzing the talent of each driver. And for that, there is nobody better than Ferrari, by the way, who will know what is happening at every moment. And I'm kind of sure that if you gave them to choose between Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, they will, eyes closed, choose Charles Leclerc. And not only that, if you give the chance to every team in the grid to choose between one and the other, all of them, I'm really convinced they will choose Charles Leclerc. At the same price, of course. Charles Leclerc's salary is much higher than Carlos Sainz's. But anyway. We can see here that the Charles Leclerc was kind of in front of Carlos Sainz, right? Which should be expected because Charles Leclerc was in the team 1 year before Carlos Sainz arrived. Right? He was in front consistently, did not start in Monaco when he was in the pole position. And you can see here is a P2 where Charles Leclerc did not start. Carlos Sainz did not retire a single race, and Charles Leclerc retired in 2 races. One of them in the pole position, and he was kind of gonna win because in Monaco it's very difficult to overtake. We saw that Sergio Perez won, but could have he won with Charles Leclerc on the track? I don't know. We will never know. But anyway, instead of a P2, that would have been a P3. Charles Leclerc would have had 25 points if he had won the race, and you can already see, right? 159 times plus 25 already changes the whole picture of the season. And in Hungary, he was knocked out in the first corner, along with 2 Red Bulls and a Mercedes by Valtteri Bottas knocked out both Red Bulls. but Lance Stroll was the one who knocked out Charles Leclerc. And you can see, by the way, that this is the race where Carlos Sainz got a podium. If Verstappen, Bottas, and Perez were there, could have he been in that podium? For sure not. If Leclerc had been on the race, could have been on that podium? We don't know. But anyway, you can see more or less that these two races where Leclerc was not there actually changes the whole picture of the points at the end of the season, right? So analyzing the performance of both drivers, which one do you think would have been better evaluated by the teams? I'm gonna guess Charles Leclerc, right? Let's go to 2022, and you can see already Charles Leclerc in a season where, by the way, and this is the funniest part, Spain, he was leading by far. Azerbaijan, he was leading by far. And this Azerbaijan retirement meant that he was penalized in the Canada Grand Prix. A Canada Grand Prix where, you can see here, Carlos Sainz was in P2. He was behind Max Verstappen for I don't know how many races. And laps. I don't know how many laps. And he didn't try to overtake a single time. Do you think Charles Leclerc would not have tried? But anyway. Or if it was reversed, do you think that Verstappen would not have attacked somehow Carlos Sainz? So that is clue number one that I will talk about later. The killer instinct that they say, right? And yeah, well, you can see here, P4, thanks to the huge screw-up of Ferrari, and this is the race that Carlos Sainz won. The only race that he won is the only race where he disobeyed team orders, and he was favored in exchange of Charles Leclerc, who was, by the way, leading the Grand Prix by far. And also, there was some team radio stuff that I might talk later about to see about his character. He retired here when he was behind Charles Leclerc, by the way. France, Charles Leclerc was leading, but he made a mistake. And Carlos Sainz could only do a P5. That would have been a P6 if Charles Leclerc did not retire in that race. So you can see more or less the season things, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 retirements, from which he was leading none of them. Charles Leclerc had 1, 2, 3 retirements, and he was leading in the 3 of them. Plus the Silverstone fuck-up. So does the point at the end of the championship do some kind of justice, in my own opinion? Yes. And it doesn't do justice to Charles Leclerc, who should have had more points. Except for the one in France, by the way, which was his own mistake. The one in Spain, the one in Azerbaijan, of course, that affected the one in Canada. And then you have also in Hungary that they made a huge mistake when they were leading. Of course, Verstappen was going to overtake them, but instead of finishing in P6 after putting those hard tires, maybe he could have been in P2, 3, who knows, right? And once again, thanks to that, Carlos Sainz finished in front of him. But anyway. And now we go to 2023, where people, again, were saying that Charles Leclerc was, or Carlos Sainz was in a super form or whatever, right? And if you do it like they do, and you see the points right now, you will see that Charles Leclerc is in front of Carlos Sainz, and both of them have 1 retirement. Oh, sorry, no, Charles Leclerc has 2. And thanks to the first one, which, by the way, Carlos Sainz finished in P4, which was 5, because Charles Leclerc was in the podium. This meant a penalty for here, and in here there were team radios. Same like in Silverstone, but Ferrari decided not to allow Charles Leclerc to pass. He was too early in the championship-ish, so he decided not to push. But anyway, and another retirement in Australia, thanks to some collision with one of the drivers, Lance Stroll, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway. And even before Spa, they were kind of closing the points. So that talks a little bit about... I'm going to say that this is Charles Leclerc's worst season in F1 since he arrived. This is the worst season. And even in the worst season, Charles Leclerc is still in front of Carlos Sainz. And why do I say all this? Because Carlos Sainz is a good driver. He's a consistent driver. He's kind of quick. Not as fast as Charles Leclerc, in my own opinion. But anyway, but we also know that Carlos Sainz has a dark side in his temper, in his attitude towards the team, and with the team player, right? Carlos Sainz, I mean, everybody knows that Charles Leclerc is like the driver number 1 of Ferrari. The only one who doesn't know it is Carlos Sainz, his father, his family, his friends, and his manager, which is his cousin, by the way. He thinks he's as fast as Charles Leclerc, or maybe faster, or he can beat him, or I don't know what. Results are there. The numbers are there, and numbers don't lie. And we have seen that in the 3 seasons that they have been together, well, 2.5 seasons that they have been together, Charles Leclerc, if he didn't have the bad luck that he had, he would have been in front of Carlos Sainz for more points. I'm going to start with the ones where he was also not happy in the radio, right? Including this year, by the way. The number one is his own mistake, Barcelona, right? 2022. Charles Leclerc was leading by far, and Carlos Sainz did this. A big mistake that sent him into the gravel in his home Grand Prix. A big mistake. How can one be leading by far, and the other one, who thinks he's as good as the first driver, does these kind of mistakes? In a season where Ferrari had a car to be able to win races, Carlos Sainz was going to win 0 if it was not for the fuck up in Silverstone, right? Stop inventing, the famous sentence. Carlos Sainz made the pole position thanks to the qualifying being in the rain. In the race, Verstappen had a problem, and then Carlos Sainz was in front of Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc was coming faster, and of course, instead of fighting and losing time, Hamilton was coming quicker from behind. Leclerc asked for passing, and Carlos Sainz said no, because he wanted to try to be as fast as Charles Leclerc, which he couldn't. In the meantime, Hamilton was gaining. They let him go, and Charles Leclerc was in front. And then some laps later, I think it was Esteban Ocon who retired the car in the old finish line. And Ferrari decided to pit one of the cars only. According to Mattia Binotto, which was the team leader in that time, they always have the strategy that when these kind of things happen, just to be safe, they will leave the car that is leading on track and take the second one to take the risks, right? Why would you do that? If you are P1, P2, why would you sacrifice the first car and not the second one, right? So they pit Carlos Sainz, as did everybody else, to put the soft tire, and they left Leclerc with the hard tire and on track. And there was the team radio that said before the race restart, leave 10 spaces with Charles Leclerc so he can put some temperature in the tires and continue to win the race. What did Carlos Sainz do? The famous sentence: stop inventing. He was right next to Charles Leclerc. He threw him under the bus and escaped to win the race, disobeying Ferrari's orders. Charles Leclerc put his elbows out and he fought as hard as he could. And I think Carlos Sainz could be very, very thankful that Charles Leclerc did this, because that's what actually saved him. Hamilton and Perez were not able to overtake Charles Leclerc for I don't know how many laps. And that was the gap that gave Carlos Sainz the victory. Because if not, I'm kind of sure that Sergio Perez and Hamilton were going to overtake Carlos Sainz. So you can already see that there was some attitude about this. And it's not the only time. Other times in that season as well, when Charles Leclerc was faster with the radio, he refused to let him go. And this season, by the way, it has been the other way around. And again, in Jeddah, as I said before, there was the team radio where Leclerc, when I think he started in P12, I don't know, something like this. And Carlos Sainz started like P5, something like this. And Carlos Sainz was catching him. Thanks to the safety car, Carlos Sainz was still in the front of Leclerc. Leclerc was coming faster, asked for permission. They said no, and Leclerc stayed behind because in that racetrack, in a DRS train, it's kind of difficult to overtake. And of course, you're not going to take risks in a street racetrack with your teammate, right? It's not the only time. And you will see that when the things are around, as it was in, I don't know which Grand Prix it was. I don't think it was Belgium. It was somewhere else. Where I think it was actually Silverstone, where Carlos Sainz was coming faster in faster tires, and Ferrari didn't let him go, and he was not very happy. Well, here is the example. What happened in this Grand Prix? He didn't want Charles Leclerc to do that. Huh? And in that Grand Prix, actually, this same thing happened where with the roles reversed, right? They pit Leclerc for the soft tire and they left Carlos Sainz with the hard tire. What happened? He was not happy. We also saw the Australian Grand Prix, which is this year, and you see that this is the... Sorry, I have a finger, I don't know where to point it. Here. This happened. This happened with his really good friend, Fernando Alonso. In one of the restarts after the red flags, the many red flags that there were in this Grand Prix, we saw that Carlos Sainz actually made contact, not once, but twice with Fernando Alonso. Once, one of the restarts, he touched him in high speed. This is the first and second corner. Going down to the third corner, they touched in high speed, which was very dangerous, and Fernando Alonso knows that. He had a huge crash in the McLaren in 2014 or 15. And in the second one, he knocked Fernando Alonso out, basically. What did he do? When they told him that he had a 5-second penalty, which for me, this is a 5-second penalty, when you have done the same thing during the race, in the same race, is a joke. What did he do? He was complaining, very angry. Let me talk to them. What talk to them? There's cameras already. So you can see his attitude. He likes to complain. His reality is kind of distorted with what. So, and this is where I'm going. The rumors are that Ferrari are not very happy with Carlos Sainz, and Carlos Sainz is not very happy with Ferrari. The first one, because of his attitude, and the second one, because of Ferrari's attitude. He doesn't understand why Ferrari prefer Leclerc than him, right? Why many decisions are made for Charles Leclerc and not for him. When he was the one leading the championship, not anymore. What can I say? I mean, the rumors are that Audi is looking for an experienced driver, and one of them could be Mr. Carlos Sainz, right? His contract, as well as Leclerc, is finishing in 2024, at the end of 2024. And rumors say that Ferrari might be looking for somebody else that might be quick, but not as quick as Charles Leclerc. They need a second driver, not a driver who thinks he's the first driver and doesn't accept the role of the second driver. They need somebody that when Leclerc has problems or he makes a mistake, is there to... Which Carlos Sainz could be. But he doesn't understand that he's there for that job and not to try to win the championship. What can we say? I mean, everybody can see that he is quick, but he has this, like I said, distorted reality where he thinks he's better than what he is. I mean, if his attitude was different and he understood that he's the number 2 driver, or that Leclerc has the priority, of course. For me, if I were the team principal of Ferrari, I would keep him, of course. It's like having a number 1 and maybe a little bit less faster number 2, which would guarantee results and everything. So, what do I think is going to happen? I think either he's going to renew for one season for 2025 and see what's going to happen next, because 24 and 25 for Sauber is going to be key, important years to see what is going to happen. Alfa Romeo is going to live with Haas to stay in F1 as an engine supplier. And we will see that Audi, as rumored after the CEO departed, that they might have some delays and stuff in the project, so might not be a very desirable car for 2026. So I think actually Audi, especially his father is in Audi, for the rallies, might be interested in having father and son in their structures, right? And if he goes, who's going to arrive to Ferrari? Well, my guess is that Oliver Behrman is in the queue to arrive to Ferrari. And this is what is going to happen, more or less. What do you think? Should he switch to Audi, seeing how Ferrari and him have this misunderstanding? Should Ferrari really not renew him? What's going to happen? If you know it, if you have comments, leave it in the comments as well. And we can see each other in the next debate room.